We're also going to bring in our guest, Alan Patricof, who is co-founder and managing director of venture capital firm Greycroft, and our guest host, John Hope Bryan. Alan, let's get you to weigh in on this part of the conversation. You've been very vocal about you are supporting Joe Biden to this point. I know you said after Iowa that it was a little bit disappointing, but you were going to wait and see what happened. What do you think after New Hampshire?
Well, last night was two big fundraisers for Joe and in New York, and were over the top, frankly. And it's been reported in the paper. I have no specific knowledge, but the report was they would raise close to $1 million. And if you divide that by $2,800 a piece, which is what they raised for those fundraisers, it's a lot of people. And I can tell you that the rooms, in both cases, there were two of them, and they were both packed. And
it hasn't translated into votes yet. What happens if? What does he need to do in South Carolina in order for his campaign to keep going?
Oh, I think he's got to produce in Nevada, come out pretty close, and in South Carolina, he's really got to show his stuff. If
he's got to win.
Yeah, it's critical. I think he said it. I think the donors feel it. Everybody's sticking with Joe until they see what happens there, and then of course you've got Super Tuesday. But I think the money is I'm sure a difficult issue, and you really got to raise the money, and you need momentum to do that. That's why I say last night was a very good indication that people who've been supporting him have stayed with him, which is.
Do you think that do you think this is now about personality, or do you think this is about where the party is?
I think that Mike coming into the race has confused a lot of people, because the kind of people who would be supportive to Mike are the same people who would be supportive to Biden, I believe. And, you know, a lot of the people, certainly the New York people, are all, as I am, a friend of Mike. And Mike just came in a lot later. And I think people are sticking with the candidate that they started with until it runs its course. And Joe was very strong last night. But in the end, the voters are what counts. And we've got to see how things go in these next couple of states.
Would Mike be your second choice, Bloomberg?
I think it's fair to say that I've certainly always been a friend of Mike's, and he's a very viable, formidable candidate. Certainly, his ads are overwhelming at this point.
We're showing the predicted sites, and it's very strange. I was looking at them earlier today.
Yeah.
No, what's strange is that Bloomberg on the who's going to be president in 2020 is number 2, and he's closer to Trump than anyone else,
right.
And everybody else is far below. But who's going to be the nominee? It's still Sanders, well ahead of where Sanders, well ahead of where Bloomberg is. So it's weird. For the nomination, it's still Sanders, but for who has a better chance of actually being elected president, it's Bloomberg.
You know, that's the interesting.
But the weird thing is Joe's in single digits on both of them.
But I mean, take that as an example. I agree with you. I don't think there's a chance that Bernie's going to be the candidate, but the votes at the moment say he is.
Yeah, in the betting.
So at the moment, they say that Joe is behind, and that could change also.
Yeah.
I think one interesting thing is, which is watching the Bloomberg ads, you'll notice that he has assumed the Obama role. If you see his ads the last couple of days, it's all Obama and Mike. And Joe has not done that, which is, and it's ironic because Joe obviously was his vice president and could.
He doesn't need to.
100 kids.
He's got that affiliation.
Except that Mike is trying to take that association
away.
away.
What do you make of Bloomberg's efforts online to punch back at Trump? You know, there's been a lot of people in the Democratic Party that have said we don't want to get down in the mud. When I say mud, meaning slinging mud, slinging
Twitter mud.
Twitter, we'll call it Twitter
muck.
mud.
Yeah,
the muck, name calling,
he's
all
fully
of that
there.
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Bloomberg has actually done is said, you know what, I'm going to do it too. I'm going to take advantage of every time Trump goes after me. I'm going to go right back after him. And attention in this world, it's almost like any news is good news for you in terms of the attention you can get. Is that a good or bad strategy, given that he is oftentimes trying to differentiate himself from Trump?
I think it's a great strategy for Mike. I mean, he is a street fighter, really. I mean, he's a self-made guy, and he's not going to take any baloney from anybody, and particularly Trump. And I heard his comment, was it yesterday, which is, you measure someone's size from the neck up, which is a good comment.
But the whole you go low, you go low, we go high.
That was never true,
that's
though.
Over.
That was never true. People that said that never stayed high. They were always just as low.
But it's not against each other on the Democratic Party. Joe has been consistently anti-Trump from the day he started till today.
We're seeing some sniping there, too.
You've got Bernie supporters who are booing Pete Buttigieg when he goes on.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it is.
I did. Well, that's the supporters. I mean, the supporters are doing that against every
candidate. Those are the voters.
John, let me ask you, when it comes to this idea of self-funding, Bloomberg is self-funding, and the idea there, some people say, well, that's money buying politics. Some people say, well, that's just his money, so he's not corrupted by all the corporate influence.
Yes,
how do you read that? And this is an argument that Trump made the first time around as well. If I'm going to self-fund, which he didn't end up needing to do, it's my money, so therefore I'm not under the influence of anyone else.
For the underserved communities that I serve is a brilliant strategy. Because the comments was about the billionaires' money coming out of their wallets. We're concerned. He's actually talking about money going into poor people's wallets. It's the Tulsa speech I talked about. Black economic empowerment. People want to know, how can I become a billionaire? How can I become a millionaire? How can I become wealthy? And I think this neutralizes the interest question. Do you believe my ideas or do you not? Joe, on your comment about Sanders' popularity versus Bloomberg, you got the emotional side of the brain. That's Sanders. And then the question is when is the logic side part of the brain click in, which is the Bloomberg conversation?
I don't know. Bernie has different emotional responses to different people. Believe me, my emotional response to Bernie is not fond.
Yeah, but this won't last.
John and Alan, I want to thank you guys both for being here. It's been great having you.